All right, y'all switch sides. Wow. There was somebody, I was preaching on the sheep and the goats, and this guy said, we sit on the right side of the auditorium, and I said, that's not what the text says. It says Jesus looked to those on his right hand, and the guy got up and said, I've been proved wrong biblically, and they moved to the other side. And I went, I like your integrity. And he said, never had anybody explain that to me before. I said, well, I probably won't do it again. I'm glad to be here again. Y'all probably couldn't tell, I really enjoy teaching this kind of thing. And this is the part that I like the most. This is very practically to school with you at Lubbock Christian. We told them that you were graduating from Sunset, and they said, go get him now. And I was so blessed to be there and happy. That family, the Mowdy family, took care of me in beautiful ways, and I love that. And we were so blessed to grow. But we looked crazy, going out with tractors, pulling cotton trailers, picking people up for worship, going and getting kids for all of our youth things. The first year we had VBS there, we had 480 come to VBS, and all of our VBS teachers quit. They all said, we're done. So we did it mainly in the auditorium and all that. Next year we were ready. I was blessed to preach in Shamrock. That was a congregation that had a bit of a bumpy past. They'd had a series of preachers come and go. It seemed like all the time, and it seemed like every time they went, they would go right, left, hiring different kinds of preachers. And we were blessed to be able to have a good, fruitful ministry there that did well. And then in Portales, I was blessed to be the preacher of a merger. I don't want to ever be blessed again. But we took the 2nd Street Church of Christ and the 4th Street Church of Christ, sold everything, bought property on 3rd Street, because nobody can have an advantage in a merger. And I was blessed to do that. We got to plant churches in Ukraine and got to plant a Spanish-speaking congregation in Fort Worth. And God has blessed us in such great ways. And I think part of it is you either have the desire and the willingness to try things, or you don't. I'm one of those, I don't believe everything has to succeed. I think sometimes failure is the best learning experience you're ever going to have. But you ought to try some things. You ought to give some things a shot. If they're biblical, let's just try them. I learned later, talking to an insurance agent, that going out across Happy with those open cotton trailers behind tractors was the stupidest move of my ministry. But that's why I didn't ask an insurance agent before we started. He'd have made me feel bad. Well, let's go on and talk about this. I want to talk about a story that I think you know pretty well. In fact, it was referenced in the opening prayer and then referenced again later. And I was really impressed that somehow they had read my mind and knew where we would go this evening. This story to me is an incredible one. I just remembered it most of my life as a song. My mom taught kindergarten at the church where I grew up. She taught it during the day, and that's a great thing when your building's open all week. But we sang Zacchaeus 1,000,006 times. It was one of my mom's favorite stories, and it is one of mine. I want to read it with you. Luke chapter 19, verse 1 through verse 10 says, He entered Jericho and was passing through, and there was a man called by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector, and he was very rich. Zacchaeus was trying to see who Jesus was and was unable to because of the crowd, for he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree in order to see him, for he was about to pass through that way. When Jesus came to that place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for today I must stay at your house. And he hurried and came down and received him gladly. When they saw it, they all began to grumble, saying, "He is gone to be the guest of a man who's a sinner." Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, "Behold, Lord, half my possessions I'll give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will give back 4 times as much." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to your house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost." I'll go ahead and skip through that text. We talked this morning about how we need to pray for open doors, and we need to watch for open doors. We need to be really focused on seeing those open doors as they come. And that's what we see Jesus doing here. He's walking through Jericho. Jericho was an amazing city of their time. It was a place where many different cultures came together. And there were several different roads that connected them to other places. We learned in the Good Samaritan story about one road from Jerusalem to Jericho called the Bloody Way, where he got jumped and the Good Samaritan helped him. There was a massive highway, though, going out both sides, and it became a great part of a trade route. And Jesus goes to Jericho and is walking down their street. And the words that it uses in the Greek is literally, they were pressing on him and touching him from every side. Everybody wants to be close. Everyone wants to have a chance to talk with Jesus. And I think that Jesus had lots of opportunities to talk to those around him. But there was a guy in a tree. When it says Zacchaeus was a very small man, that's not the word for short. It's the word for unusually small. It'd be sometimes translated in the word tiny. Now, I don't know exactly how big that is. I know that the average height of most men at that time was about 5'6" or so. So I would have been a pretty good sized fellow there. But Zacchaeus was abnormally small. And as he looked at all the people gathered around Jesus, he knew he didn't stand a chance. So he climbed up in a sycamore, which was in that area, a sycamore fig tree, crawled up in that tree, and he waited until Jesus walked by. Can you see it? Can you be on that road that day, seeing the crowd all around Jesus, all the noise that goes with that, the questions, the back and forth, and then you see Jesus look up in that tree and see Lazarus there. Jesus said, "Zacchaeus, come down." And he begins to come down the tree. Wonder what all the people clamoring for the attention of Jesus thought when he began speaking to Zacchaeus. Jesus walked the streets of this world. Jesus didn't confine himself to a building. He didn't confine himself to a home. He traveled through this world, and he went looking for people he could change, people he could impact. He would go up to someone who was lame and say, "Do you want to get well?" He would go talk to different people. He called some of them to be his disciples, but he went and talked to them all the time. And he discussed all of these things with them. And Jesus went to their homes. We read of him going like to Matthew, the tax collector's house. Oh, that just made the Pharisees and Sadducees so upset. Well, he's going to upset them again. He's going to go to a chief tax collector's house. Tax collectors were wealthy. Tax collectors were hated. But when you were the tax collector of the tax collectors, oh boy, that was no good. And that's what Zacchaeus was. Jesus went to their homes. Jesus saw them in the street. Jesus walked through the streets looking for opportunities. Why? Well, that's why he was here. Luke chapter 19, verse 10 says, "For the Son of Man has come to seek out and to save those around him." To seek them out and to save them. It doesn't say he was sent to a place to sit and wait and hopefully those needing him would pass by. He was sent to go out and get them. My question for us is, are we looking into the trees and seeking out those in there in our community? I'm an addictions counselor. I'm around some people that probably aren't the prime target for many religious groups. But Jesus would have seen them. He would have seen them hiding in a doorway. He would have seen them standing in an alley. I counsel children. Many times they're hurt and we just walk by, but Jesus would have seen them, don't you think? He would have seen all of those that were uncomfortable in the presence of such an incredible teacher. He saw all those and he saw them for what they truly were. And that makes a difference. There are people in Canyon that aren't coming to this building. Do you believe that? They're not comfortable here. They have no idea what we're doing in here right now, but they're driving by, apparently using y'all's parking lot as a street from what I've seen so far. You got to be careful walking around this thing. But they aren't thinking of this as a place where their answers are. But Jesus wouldn't have been in here. He'd have been out there, seeing them where they were at, seeing them on their job, seeing them in all those places. Well, I got to quit hitting the laser pointer. I am preaching at the Faith Village Church of Christ in Wichita Falls. I want to first share with you this story because it was our first one. I hadn't been there very long. Have any of y'all ever heard of Patterson Auto? If you were ever inside our area, there was like 17 different dealerships owned by this one guy named Harry Patterson. He was a member of the church. He paid for Wichita Christian schools. He started many different things. I came to him once for talking about Sunset, and he just said, I've got a check, put a number on it. What do you want? And I remember going, 3? I don't know. I've never been asked anything like that. But he was a great, benevolent man, but he had a problem. His son did something horrible. He got involved in human trafficking. That's about as bad as you can get. Suddenly, the town turned on this family. People were vandalizing their buildings. The employees stopped wearing shirts with the names on it anymore. All these things had happened, and the family was just decimated by all that had occurred. And we were sitting there, and I said, now we could do what we always do on Sunday night, or we could do a little bit different kind of worship. Let's go to every one of these dealerships and ask them to join us on Sunday night. And we're going to have a prayer time for them. We're going to express our hurt and concern for them. We are going to feed them barbecue. We got a group called the Holy Smokers that just cook ribs and brisket all the time. That's how you really up your visitors. But I said, let's invite them and let's let them know. So we went, invited them at every place. They filled up tables and we gave them food to eat. We had a devotional time with them as our worship. We had special times of prayer for them. We sang them a song, loving them. And one of the men came up and said, what kind of church does this stuff? And I said, well, we do. Now, we hadn't done it really before, so we're doing it right now. Didn't know exactly how it would work. But those families that started coming into our building, those people who came in and said, this is a safe place for us, it made a real difference. And I think it was something good for us to do. We started on, we would meet together. We had a little more abbreviated Sunday evening worship. We would go out to every firehouse spread out across the city and go in there and say, you know, we just want you to know how much we appreciate you being here for us. We began to talk about different things. We did that with our police as well. They're scattered everywhere. We had to meet them in parking lots all over town. That's crazy. We went to the hospice of Wichita Falls and said, We want to provide a big meal for you guys, and we want to have a devotional with you. We want to sing songs. We want to pray prayers, because those are the kinds of things we need to do. But we want to do that with you here at your place. We have, like you, right here, we have Mustangs for Christ. You've got the Buffs. I was doing a video for my class at Sunset. I wasn't going to be able to be there. I was doing a video about how getting out in your community makes a difference. I said on my camera, I was holding it out like this on the campus, and I said, you can go meet people at Walmart, you can meet them at South Plains Mall, you can do this. And this voice coming up from the side said, what about Holly Hop? I love that ice cream deal. And I turn around, and this girl who's from Lubbock, going to school at Midwestern, she stops and we just talked, and I just leave my phone in my hand as we talk about Jesus and about how important it is for us to talk about him all the time. She was baptized a couple of weeks ago, and I told the class when I got there, that's not really supposed to happen. That's bizarre. But if we get outside, you never know what might happen. We had a Tower Elementary had people break in and destroy desks, monitors, all those things. And we said, we're going to worship, and then on Sunday night, we're going to come out there, and we're going to clean all that up. We'll be your cleaning crew. And then we left them, and this wasn't my idea, so it's not a good one, these jars with all the ingredients for cookies in it, and left that for them so they could all go home and cook cookies. They really liked it, and I didn't understand it, because if somebody gave me work to do, I wouldn't like that very much. But these are some things that we started trying to do in the community. And I'll tell you, numbers changed a lot, but a lot of our members who hadn't been coming, that was the biggest part of that. They started coming back again because we had interesting things for us to do. This is Asia Hollingsworth. We had our local funeral director, who's a member at our congregation. I went to him and I said, I really need some help with something. And he said, you need help from the funeral home? And I said, no, I need the help for the guy that is from the Lubbock area and grows pumpkins. I'd like to give away pumpkins because we have like 8 different church groups out here selling them. We'd like to give them away. And he said, I can only give you a truckload. Those were the giantest pumpkins. This is one of the small ones. They were huge. And we had a time on a Saturday just to go out and give away pumpkins. And it was amazing who showed up. It was our neighborhood. And some of them said, we've never seen you guys doing anything like this. And we were going, well, that's a little embarrassing. They said, it's nice to see you outside. Told me a lot. This right here is our blessing box. We have these out around different places. We put food in them each day. People come and take the food that they need. We have learned by trial and error the right kind of foods to put in there. But they come now and they get those things. Man, don't put fruit in a box with big windows on it. That is nasty. But we give away a lot of Pop-Tarts and ramen noodles and all these different sort of things. People come up because we had some people that were embarrassed to come and ask us. So I said, well, we'll do that here. What's amazing is we no longer have to put food out there. There were all these people in our community that come and put out the food for us, which is nice. This is my AIM team that we had, 4 girls from Sunset. They're in Ventures and Missions program. They're standing in front of the Sunshine House, which is a ministry of the Churches of Christ of Wichita Falls. All the churches in town work together to give clothing and give food to the homeless and the hungry every week in Wichita Falls. And it's a lot of fun. Well, depending on the weather. I'm the outside guy. I don't like it when it's too hot. But other than that, did you know that Wichita Falls has this thing called humidity? Y'all ever heard about that? Aren't you glad we don't have that here? Man. We do different things, cooking, all this. We gave away 1,000 stockings. And that wasn't enough, so we had different groups donate things. We gave away about 4 or 5 toys of different kinds, like Mr. Potato Head and all that, plus stockings to people in our community that couldn't afford such things. They made me wear a weird tie. I didn't like that part. We developed carnival games, and we take them outside, and there's the holy smokers out there barbecuing. We went to the overpasses where our homeless gather, took our smoker out there and started cooking food early in the day. If you ever want to know where your homeless population is, start cooking meat, and they're all going to come. There's no right or wrong. What we did was we had a congregational meeting, and I said, I just want to know the way you think we could do evangelism. Not inviting someone here. We're going to have seminars, we're going to do all that kind of stuff, but how are we going to get them to interact with us? And how are we going to do it in a way that's not threatening to them? And we had 47 different ideas given by different members. I wrote down who all suggested it because they had to work on that. We've applied so far 39 of them. And it's different when it's everybody's ideas. People want to be a part of the ideas they have. And I don't know if it would be the same here. There would probably be some things that are different. But community-wise, I think there would be a lot of things that would be sort of the same. But I got a problem with just doing nice stuff. I think we have to ask this question. I read this in a book, and they said the ultimate question of our time is, should we be doing good deeds or telling good news? Well, the answer is obviously both, right? Jesus did good deeds. Jesus told good news. The early church did good deeds. The early church told good news. I think that's what we're called to do as well. And I think it's something that we can and must do. The problem that I see is it seems like we either say, no, we're just about truth. We're just going to do teaching. Okay. But I'd really challenge you to see if you really had any people you were teaching. Or people will say, we're going to be in the community service business. Okay, I understand what you're saying, but I have another question for you. What have you fed so many? What have you clothed so many in warm clothes? What if you put gas in a lot of different gas tanks? What if you gave bus tickets to a lot of people on buses? What if you gave them a safe place to sleep and then they died? You think they'd be happy? Think they'd be blessed? A full stomach doesn't make you feel better when your soul is lost. And one of the things that I really believe we have to remember is we live in a culture of we should do good things. And I'm grateful for that. Our younger people are leading that effort, leading the effort to want to go out and do good things. And I am all for doing good things. But you also have to save their souls while you have them. See, that's what we're doing, is we're trying to find open doors for the teaching of the gospel. And we need to make sure that's something that we do. Full stomach doesn't change anything. I'll bring in some samples for the next class. But every time we do one of these good things, I provide a Bible study or answers to questions or one of those things for people to take home. Usually after every one of these community things we have, like the Harry Patterson thing, I had about 16 Bible studies going on for the next while. When we went to all the firefighters, there were about 12 Bible studies that continued on. Because we made a special Bible study that fit the lives of the people we were reaching out to at that time. when it was Christmas time and we were giving away stockings, we had a picture of the manger and said, if Jesus didn't get out of this box, we have no hope. And we talked about how Jesus grew up, painted them a picture of the whole gospel of Christ. When we talked about being thankful, we talked about how it's really neat to be thankful for all the physical things we have, but if you don't have the spiritual ones, you're not going to be thankful long. And so we try to pair what we do community service-wise with doing something that teaches truth. In addition to all these kind of things, I teach for Fellowship of Christian Athletes in our 3 major high schools and inside 2 of our middle schools. And at McNeil Middle School in Wichita Falls, I have about 108 to 110 on Friday mornings. They gather. We've given away about 30 Bibles. Whoever thought people would want Bibles? Today's world. I've got 68 on my shelf, I think. We're just trying different things. Some things we'll probably stop. Some things we'll probably do more of. And what I find is a lot of these people wander into our Sunday morning service because they're interested in a church that does things for their kids, for a church that does things for those around them. And I think it's something that we as a people, we need to do more. I want to share with you a story that sort of fits with the Zacchaeus thing. One of the schools I've helped, and one of those that I've worked with, is in Quito, Ecuador. Have a really, really great friend of mine who goes back and forth every year to teach there. And he grew up there. We were having a fun time talking to people out in the middle of nowhere. And there was a bush that moved. I was very interested in it. I kept staring at it because I was thinking, I don't know what kind of things they have crawling around here, but I'm interested. But one of the local preachers there went walking over, and he leaned down and he started talking to somebody, and finally a girl came out of the bush. She was dragging her legs. They were folded inside, and she was dragging them out, and he was talking to them, and someone came up and said, "Don't talk to her, she's one of the cursed ones. God cursed her with her legs, and her parents are very ashamed of this. You just need to forget about it, just let her go back." What they would do is people that loved her would come and throw food in the bushes for her to eat each day. And we sat there and looked at her, and finally he said, "Can we take you into the Capitol to the hospital and see about fixing your legs?" And she didn't know what to say. The mother was there, and she said, "Well, she's been cursed." I said, "No, she wasn't cursed. She was hurt." And we found there was a lot of this there. A certain set of vitamins and other things they weren't getting inside their diet that caused clubfoot. So far, we have fixed 38 little kids with clubfoot that we have found in different areas. And it's strange now. Every time we go and we start to preach, they start bringing these kids out. Now they go, "Oh wait, here are the people that fix people's legs. Let's bring these kids out." And we have to buy the braces. We have to do all this. It's hugely expensive. The surgery, the hospital time, the physical therapy, and the braces cost about $110. Isn't that amazing? Change someone's life that way. Last time I was there, this girl came. She was the first one. She said, "Watch, I don't need braces anymore." And she was walking around and she was smiling, and I was going, that's amazing. The church has grown immeasurably because they are the church that help children walk. That's an amazing thing. There are people that come from all sorts of different religious groups. They had a whole Muslim church convert because they call out to God to do those sort of things, and God doesn't ever do it. But this was a group that took care of them. I remember being in Africa and us digging water wells and having someone come up to us and go, "We prayed so long for water wells." And I said, "Well, here we are." And they said, "What should we do?" And we had this big tent and we taught them how to obey the gospel. The world's not as closed as we think. I think sometimes we assume the world doesn't want to be saved. They don't want to know better. They don't want to know what God is saying. I believe firmly they just don't trust religion much. They just don't think about going into a building for their answers. I think one reason that right now younger folks, 14 to 24, are the main people being converted is we catch them at places like West Texas A&M, like Amarillo College, like Midwestern State. We target youth activities and we go after them in our high schools and in our middle schools. And I think that's great. But do you think suddenly one day they just don't care anymore? They can't learn anymore? They can't find anything out? We have to continue to reach out to them no matter what their age is. The last guy I baptized was quite aged. He was in his upper 70s. Went and was talking to him outside. He was getting some food. And he said, "How come nobody's ever talked to me about this before?" And I said, "Well, that's embarrassing. But we can talk about it now." We just have to be where we can see them. When Jesus walked through this world, he didn't do church as usual the way we do it. He was there in the synagogue. He was reading scripture and he was teaching, wasn't he? But that wasn't all he was doing. He was teaching in the sand by the water. He was teaching from the hillside. He was walking around the temple courts. He was in all these different places. My question is, when did we lose that? And are we willing to try that now? I was talking to a congregation that's really not far from here, and I was telling them, I said, well, since your community is now 88% Hispanic, why not give the auditorium to Spanish-speaking people? Y'all can meet in a classroom or something. There's only like 9 of you. Let's give them that. And I will bring Spanish-speaking students from Lubbock, and we will blitz your town. We will be here for 3 weeks, and we will touch everybody while we're here. Talked to every one of them. They said, no, that's not our thing. Okay. Saving Hispanics, not their thing. That's uncomfortable, isn't it? I wish it was our thing. I pray it'll be our thing. When I was in Portales, I loved Portales so much. Such a great place to raise my kids. It's a great place for my kids to grow up. I don't know how many of y'all know much about New Mexico, but I coached a baseball team there, and we had 7 different nationalities and races running around on the field. And it was amazing. My son would rip the ball over to Sonny Horned Eagle, and he would fire it across, and I would sit there and look at him and go, what an awesome thing, so many different people. And about 98% of every congregation was Anglo. We didn't take advantage of that great opportunity we had. So we had to change that. We had to do that differently. And it was uncomfortable. We had a family that left over it. But we got to reach out to the mission field God gives us. We have to try. I can't think about how many times I have spoke at Red River and Lake Tahoe and in different congregations about doing this sort of thing. Do you know how many congregations typically try it? About 1 out of 30. This could be one. Just try it. See what happens. Some people are going to not see this as their thing, and they will continue to do other ministries in a beautiful way, and every ministry that someone does is valuable. But there might be some here that would want to work on these kind of outreaches. And that would make a real difference. When we meet together at 6 o'clock, we're going to talk about how the community views us, the Lord's church, and how the community views your congregation. The different things they think about and ask themselves. And we're going to talk about how Jesus is very interested in how our community views us. In fact, one of the things it talks about as far as how he judges us is by how we meet the needs of others. If Jesus comes back in my lifetime, I hope he comes while I'm out serving someone else. I hope he doesn't come while I'm watching the latest Marvel movie. I don't want him to come then. I don't want him to come while I'm at the ball game, even though the odds are pretty high because I really like going to all the ball games. Hope he doesn't come while I'm out driving up and down the highway. I hope he comes when I'm teaching my class at the jail. Hope he comes when I'm speaking to the students at the middle school. I hope he comes when we're out at the overpass, I always say overpass, trying to feed people. I hope he comes when we go and we work with the city and we cut off several blocks and we have a block party for people that live there that we have no idea who they are. I hope he comes during a time like that. Because if he does, he's going to see everything he asked us to do. Everything he wanted us to be. And I like the block party thing. We cook barbecue. In fact, that seems to be, I'll have to go back and look at the pictures. I think cooking barbecue may be our greatest spiritual gift. I just pray that we can change the momentum that we have and become a growing fellowship. Again, I'm tired of our congregations closing down. I'm tired of the Christian Chronicle reporting on congregations closing down. We're continuing to do the same thing week after week. We expect a different result. It's time to try something else. And I think it fits our area. I grew up in a town of 14,000. I grew up in a sports-oriented town. I grew up in a town of 14,000 that was a hub for several small congregations, most of whose names started with S. Sunray, Stratford, Stinnett, Spearman, all these places. Congregations would typically be struggling around us. And I grew up in this place where we had some of the best people in the world. If I broke down by the side of the road, I wasn't going to wait long. Somebody was going to stop. I grew up in a world where most people in my community knew my family, knew who I was. I grew up in a community where I was in the paper all the time. My mom used to keep a scrapbook for me and my sister, and it was just absurd how many times the Moore County News Press put us in the paper. I was in a place where the average price that people paid for an animal was doubled at our livestock show because our businesses weren't paying for animals. They were paying for kids. I grew up in a place where if someone's house burned down, neighbors from all over would be gathered up outside seeing what they could do. You know what that's like, don't you? You grew up in a place like that. You live in one right now. I grew up in the world of Canyon, Pampa, Borger, Hereford, Dumas, all these places that were these little towns that really worked hard to take care of the people inside of them. And I got to admit, Canyon was a little weird because Amarillo keeps coming out wanting to join you. That's a little strange. I don't think Amarillo is going to make that 40-mile run to Dumas. I don't think it'll ever happen, but you don't know. What if we took the stuff that we do as citizens of our town and we did it together as members of our kingdom? What if we just did that? We have a trailer fixed up with stuff in case there's a disaster. We've got kitchen supplies, we've got crock pots, microwaves, all this stuff. If something goes wrong, we're ready to load it up and take it. What if we just accentuated what we do naturally as people in this part of the world? And what if we let them know we were doing it because we love Jesus and we're part of a church family that cares for our community? It's in our DNA. I think we can do it. And I think the world will respond. All right, let's pray together. Dear Father, I love you so very, very much, and I know that we as a people love you very much. Father, I'm so grateful to be here in Canyon. I'm grateful to be around so many people that I've met in Happy and Shamrock and Portales and at different congregations around this area. Father, I think when I was born, I won the lottery. There are so many places children were being born that very same day. And I was born in Lubbock, Texas, to a family from Dumas who took me home and raised me up in a community that loved me and cared for me and supported everything I ever did. I grew up in a community where I didn't have many needs that weren't met. I grew up in a community where if something went wrong, people immediately responded. And I grew up in a community where the church was strong and vibrant and valuable, where my needs were met. As I was walking in and seeing the things for the seniors graduating from high school this year, I smiled, remembering my time of putting my pictures up and people bringing me those gifts. And the church is so wonderful, and we love the bride of Christ with everything in us. Father, I just pray we won't keep it a secret. I pray we won't keep the doors closed, that we will open them up and invite people in, and we will open up our doors and set up tables in the parking lot, set tents up, whatever we have to do to get a little closer to them where we can talk to them. Father, the whole point is never about the amount of people we have sitting in our pews. Our attendance does not define us. It's about how many people we're touching, how many people we're reaching out to. And Father, I think when people try this, they get addicted to it. Father, I pray that we will do a good job of taking care of our church family. May we visit every widow and widower. May we reach out to every child. May we strengthen every family. And I pray this congregation will continue to do all the things that they have done to build up the body here. But Father, I pray we will also take some time to go to those who are condemned, who are lost. Engage them in conversation. Invite them in with the smell of food, but keep them there with the smell of good fellowship. Father, we need to impact the world around us. And if we're not going to, I pray that you'll raise up a group who will teach your gospel. But Father, congregations around us are dying, and we don't want this congregation to be one of those. Bless us and help us as we try to grow this congregation. Father, I pray that will become what this church is known for. This congregation will be known as a congregation that reaches out and changes their community, and maybe someday even plants another church in this area. If there's room for 3 high schools, there's certainly room for another congregation of the Lord's people. Father, I pray that you bless this congregation, bless the preacher and the ministers, bless the elders, the deacons, bless every teacher, bless everyone that attends. Bless us all as we try to do the work of following you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.